Hey everybody, it's Nicole with GTI, and this lecture is just a small little intro of floriculture. Just to get started, the term horticulture comes from the Latin terms hortus, which means to garden, and colere, which means to cultivate. Overall, horticulture is defined as the science and art of growing plants. From horticulture, there are a lot of branches off, one being agriculture, which is the cultivation and harvesting of consumable plants such as veggies, herbs, fruits, and nuts. And floriculture is defined as the cultivation of flowering plants, houseplants, and cut flowers. So, some key benefits in any topic of horticulture. First off would be that gardening releases stress. Gardening has been proven to lower blood pressure and it is a great therapeutic tool. Gardening is also considered a moderate exercise. Just 30 minutes in the garden has shown to reduce cholesterol, the risk of diabetes, osteoporosis, it increases your flexibility, and it strengthens your joints. An interesting benefit of floriculture that pairs with agriculture directly is companion planting. Companion planting is when certain flowering plants are planted next to certain crops to increase pollination and help with insect control, which overall helps with crop productivity. It also supports our pollinators, so it helps support our bees, birds, moths, butterflies, etc. Plants can take toxins out of the air, which is why houseplants are so strongly recommended to help your home and the toxins within it. It provides shelter to animals and insects, good and bad, which opens the door for learning about pest management. Indoor gardening is a topic that we really support at the Green Thumb Initiative. Basically anything that you can grow outside can be grown inside really easily. And you have to make some compromises when it comes to lighting, nutrients, and water, but overall it is extremely easy even with a small amount of space, and it is also extremely rewarding. So, some basic classifications of flowering plants include annuals, which do not harden off for the winter and they only have one growing season. My little example down here in the bottom left-hand corner is Calibrachoa. That's a really easy annual. Perennials, they do harden off for the winter and they come back every year. And my example is up here in the top right. It's coneflower echinacea. This is a really drought-tolerant, full-sun perennial I see a lot of around town. Biennials are basically perennials that come back for 2 years and then they die off after their 2 seasons. An example I have in the middle here is a foxglove digitalis. And bulbs they're basically perennials, easily put. They just have a different rooting system and they are very easy to transfer and divide once they spread. And my example is over here in the bottom right. It's a bearded iris that's really common. Other bulbs are obviously ones in the springtime that we see, like tulips, hyacinths, daffodils, crocus, etc. And there are also perennial vegetables and herbs as well, and some native to Canyon include chives, horseradish, mint, and asparagus, and varieties of lavender, artichokes, certain varieties of spinach and kale are also perennials, and they come back every year. So, determining whether or not a plant is an annual perennial or that means it's hardiness. It depends on zoning. So the higher numbers like an 8, 9, and a 10 have long growing seasons and very mild winters. Lower zones like a 3, 4, and a 5 have shorter growing seasons and harsher winters. Certain plants that are annual here can be perennial or grow year-round elsewhere, like in Florida and in California, where they have pretty much a year-round growing schedule. Warmer zones like a 9 and a 10 down in Florida and California, and even in the bottom half of Texas, they are home to plants that we cannot grow outdoors, like citrus trees, birds of paradise, and succulents. And we have to keep them inside in a controlled climate, where in regions like that they grow outside. And in certain zones, bulbs need dug up and stored in a dry, dark place to survive the winter. Luckily in Canyon, at a zone 6, I do believe we're somewhere right around here, we do not have to do that. Our bulbs survive well in the ground at a decent temperature all year round. So certain plants have different sunlight and water needs. They can be categorized as shade, part sun or part shade, and full sun plants. My examples up here, this on the top left corner is a bleeding heart. This is a full sun plant in our, or a full shade, a full shade plant in our zone. It cannot have hardly any sun. It will get sunburnt and die. And good examples of other flowering plants that are full shade plants are things like lobelia and delphinium. And then a good full sun plant up here in the top right, this is called a Russian sage. I see this everywhere in Canyon City, and once you see this photo, pay attention this summer. It is all over the place. People love it because it is drought tolerant. It takes that full blistering sun all day. It's also great for our pollinators. I see bees all over this, and the deer do not like it. It's one of the only things that we have that the deer do not eat, fortunately. So I'm sure that you all have covered these topics. They're pretty easy, and one of them is the chloroplast, which is where photosynthesis occurs. And photosynthesis is when light is converted into energy. So the reason that some plants require more or less sun than others is because their chloroplasts have adapted to make sugar and acids under lower or more light, which has to do with their native areas that they originated from. Water needs have to do with an adapted chloroplast and stomata. For example, this agave I have in the bottom middle, its chloroplast and stomata functions at night, likewise with other plants in the cacti and sedum family. They function at night when the temperatures are low, which in turn helps them lose less water, and that is why they are so low maintenance and they hold so much water in their leaves. So that's the end of my little intro lecture. I'm excited to be able to dive deeper into certain topics with you guys, and hopefully you learn something from me. And thanks for your time. Until next time, guys.